A utility worker is now the 9th person killed by the massive wildfires in California. More than 15,000 firefighters are battling 18 large fires burning in the state. The Mendocino complex is made up of 2 fires raging northwest of Sacramento. It is now the 2nd largest fire in California's history. 130 homes and structures have been destroyed, and flames are threatening thousands more. Joining me now to explain is CBS News weather producer David Parkinson. David, good to see you.
Good to see you.
So, how close are we to getting these fires contained, and how much more time is needed?
Well, so the Mendocino complex fire, one of them is only 20% contained. It's at 225,000 acres. You need 300,000 to be the largest man-made fire in state history. So it's not impossible for it to get there. Unfortunately, the conditions this weekend were not good. You had really high heat combined with wind gusts in the 25 to 35 mile an hour range. That continues to spread things. And unfortunately, the heat at least is sticking around for the next couple of days on top of the dry conditions that you're seeing. So there's not a whole lot of relief anytime soon. They've made some progress with the Carr fire. It's almost halfway there to containment, but that Mendocino complex fire is stubborn. It is in an area that does get a lot of wind gusts. It's in kind of a mountainous area north of Sacramento and San Francisco. So it's not out of the question for that to be burning for weeks longer, although the worst of it probably is another week or so.
The New York Times reported a few days ago that since 2012, there has not been a month without a wildfire burning in the state of California. Are we to presume that this is effectively the new normal?
So in California, in Southern California, essentially, they haven't had an end to fire season in years. It's just kept going. In Northern California, they get a couple of months break just because you get a rain during the winter. But if you don't have a season that has adequate rainfall, you end up in these really, really dire situations. And so where the Carr fire was burning, they only got 60% of their normal rain forecast. You're hoping with an El Nino this year you would get above average rain. That's possible, but that's not guaranteed. And unfortunately, it seems to be that the state of California gets drier, and thus it gets more on fire.
And heat is complicating that factor,
Correct,
right? The nation is feeling an extended heat wave. How much longer is that supposed to last?
Right. So it's interesting. On the West Coast, you've got a sort of a double-edged heat wave, right? So in Southern California, you've got an excessive heat warning right now, and that's going to run to Tuesday. In the LA area, you've got temperatures in the 100s. Out to Palm Springs, you're looking at 118. But then as you go to the north, we've got an excessive heat watch for the Spokane area, for parts of Oregon. That's for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So as soon as the heat backs off a little bit in California, it just builds in the Northwest. And the Northwest has been having a tough fire season, too. So this week looks to be a hot week. On the East Coast, we're dealing with the hottest temperatures right now. We've got a heat advisory in New York, in Philly, in Boston. We're looking at similar temperatures to today, tomorrow. So that feels like temperatures around 100 degrees, maybe up to 105, and actual temperatures in the low to mid 90s. So you're looking at those temperatures there. You can see 94 degrees in Boston, 94 in Burlington, Vermont. So the heat goes all the way up to the Canadian border, and Vermont and Albany, New York has been having a tough time. They haven't gotten below 80 since late June. It's just been the summer that just keeps going. Hopefully we'll get that pattern to switch as we get towards September.
Meanwhile, over off the mainland in Hawaii, there is a hurricane Category 4 headed towards the big island of Hawaii, and that is happening at the same time that a volcano is still erupting. What do we expect from that part of the world?
Right, so Category 4 Hector is what we call a major hurricane, and the reason why that's a concern is that these are wind fields that are in excess of 130 miles an hour. You can see the latest update from the Hurricane Center there has the winds at 145 miles an hour, right? So that's a huge wind field. Now, here's what's going to happen. As it makes its brush, Hawaii is now out of the cone of concern. That's what you can see on that map there. So it's going to pass by somewhere between a high-end 2, a low-end 3, so winds around 115 miles an hour. The question is just how close those winds get to the island. So I put the little volcano on the island of Hawaii. I know it's a little cheesy, but here's why it's really important here.
Not to scale.
Not to scale, right. So as we advance this map through and we get into the later hours of Wednesday and Thursday, you can see there's the hurricane moving through. We've got a predominant wind flow that is out of the northeast, right? So that's blowing the volcanic gases away from Hilo, away from most of your populated areas. But you can see all of that blue, that's winds of 30, 40 miles an hour. So you've got some winds, but that's not a huge wind speed for Hawaii. The big concern is on the backside of that storm, as the wind starts to ramp around, you can see the winds now moving Well, it's coming out of the southeast, right? So that's going to impact Hilo with those volcanic smog gases, and then it's also headed towards Honolulu and towards Maui, and so now you've got larger impacts of some of the volcano. So it's not a direct hit, but all you need is a switch in wind to really impact some folks with some difficult to breathe conditions.
Yeah.
And then you've got some rain. We don't have to worry too much about mudslides because this hasn't been a very ashy volcanic eruption, but it's just the last thing that the big island of Hawaii needs. They've been having these volcanic eruptions for 3 straight months now. Yeah. You know, they just need a break.
Yeah, they do. They do. To have to go through the volcano and then to have a Category 4 hurricane bearing down in the area. Tough stuff. David Parkinson, CBS News weather producer. Thanks as always, David.
Thanks for the time, Alex.